va?
Pourquoi?
Hi, Julianne, comment ça va?
Pourquoi vous avez décidé de ne pas vous présenter finalement à la chefferie? In English also.
Les deux? You want me to start? I'll start in French. Ben, c'était dans la déclaration que j'ai émise il y a une demi-heure. Moi, j'étais flatté par beaucoup de collègues, de députés. Je sais que tout le monde dit ça, mais dans mon cas, je suis content parce que c'est vrai. Des députés, des libéraux à travers le pays m'ont encouragé. Même des anciens journalistes m'ont encouragé. J'ai beaucoup apprécié ça. J'ai réfléchi et j'ai conclu que, pour le moment, le travail important que j'ai comme ministre des Finances face à la menace des tarifs douaniers des États-Unis était quand même une job à temps plein. Puis j'ai décidé de focuser là-dessus, puis je serai à mon pupitre au ministère des Finances très tôt demain matin pour faire ce travail-là, et je suis très serein.
Mais il y a plusieurs personnes qui sont
as I said in a statement we put out about half an hour ago, I was genuinely touched by caucus colleagues and Liberals across the country who encouraged me to consider seeking the leadership. I know everybody says that, but in my case, happily, it was true. So I'm very grateful for that, and I spent time this morning reaching out to those colleagues to tell them how much I appreciated it. But last night, and then after sleeping on it this morning, I decided that the most important thing I should do over the next few months is my job as Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. So I've already reached out to Premier Ford, for example. Hope to see him in Toronto in the next couple of days, and I will be solely focused on the real economic threat that American tariffs represent to the Canadian economy and to Canadian workers. It's a full-time job. I'm lucky to have it, and I'll be at the Finance Department very early tomorrow morning.
Voyez-vous comme le meilleur allié pour être capable, justement, résister à Trump? Qui d'autre, si pas vous, est prêt à faire ça?
Ben, moi, j'ai pas la prétention de prétendre que je suis le seul, Julianne. Moi, j'ai pas cette prétention-là. Je suis content que vous me dites que plusieurs ont pensé ça. Moi, je suis flatté par cet encouragement-là, comme j'ai dit, mais j'ai un travail quand même à temps plein. C'est un moment important pour l'économie du pays et je vais me concentrer là-dessus et je suis très content de ça.
Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un d'autre que vous voyez qui peut faire ça?
Ah, mais on aura beaucoup de temps à réfléchir sur cette question-là. On ne sait même pas qui va se présenter.
Mais justement, il semblerait que le parti peut-être est en train de discuter de la date pour le prochain. Vous avez probablement une préférence vous-même.
Ah oui,
est-ce que le 1er mars, par exemple, ou fin février, c'est encore approprié d'avoir ce nouveau leader-là?
Bien, moi, je ne vais pas spéculer sur les décisions que l'exécutif national va prendre. J'ai dit qu'on a beaucoup de temps parce que ça fait juste 48 heures que le premier ministre Trudeau a annoncé sa décision. Pour moi, c'était une longue 48 heures. Alors, vous me donnerez au moins 48 heures ou plus pour réfléchir sur ces questions-là. Je suis bien content d'être au caucus aujourd'hui, puis je serai, comme j'ai dit, à mon pupitre demain matin.
Colleagues on the U.S.-Canada Committee, would you prefer those considering a leadership bid to step away from cabinet? Would you prefer them to stay on and stay focused? Would you prefer them to not run for leadership at all? What would help Canada in this situation the best?
So you've asked about 4 hypothetical questions, and I want to be nice. It's Wednesday morning in January. I'm not going to answer any of those hypothetical questions. I have a meeting with my colleagues on the tariff issue at 6 o'clock today with officials from Privy Council office. So that work's ongoing. And the decision of who remains in cabinet and who runs, you'll understand, has very little to do with me.
Considérez-vous toujours les propos de M. Trump comme une blague sur le 51e État?
Moi, le soir qu'il a fait ça au souper à Mar-a-Lago la première fois, je l'ai pris comme une blague, il souriait.
Prenez-vous toujours comme une blague avec ses propos
Non, je trouve qu'il a beaucoup dépassé l'idée d'une blague. Ça devient, franchement, complètement contre-productif. Moi, j'ai rencontré M. Lutnick à Palm Beach le 27 décembre. On a parlé des tarifs douaniers, mais que le président et ses alliés continuent de répéter ça. On sait que c'est une idée qui va aller nulle part, mais le fait qu'il répète ça, c'est pas tout à fait, c'est pas tout à fait constructif.
Pour annexer le Canada, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ce qu'il a dit hier?
Bien, moi, je pense pas que je suis en mesure de dire à M. Trump qu'est-ce qu'il devrait afficher aux médias sociaux. Moi, je peux dire que je trouve, comme ministre des Finances, comme député de Beau Séjour et comme Canadien, que de répéter continuellement, qu'est-ce qui était au début je l'ai pris comme une blague au souper à la fin novembre à Mar-a-Lago. Maintenant, c'est beaucoup dépassé une blague. Ça devient... C'est une façon pour lui de semer la confusion, d'agiter les gens pour aucune raison. On comprend très bien que ça ne va jamais se passer. Moi, qu'est-ce qui devra se passer? C'est un travail conjoint sur la sécurité frontalière, sur l'immigration, sur l'économie, comment protéger les deux économies, et c'est le travail que j'ai
Ça me fait plaisir de vous voir. Over the past few days, I've received a lot of support from across the country. And, of course, I've met with my team many times, my core team. And I've been reflecting. And in the context of my reflection, of course, I very much know that I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs at a time where it's extremely difficult with the American administration, the incoming one. And so that's why I'll continue my reflection. Et donc, je vais répondre en français. Au cours des derniers jours, j'ai reçu beaucoup d'appui partout à travers le pays. Je tiens à remercier tous ceux et celles qui m'ont écrit, particulièrement au Québec. En même temps, j'ai eu plusieurs rencontres avec mon équipe de proches conseillers, et je continue ma réflexion. Et je suis très au courant que la relation avec les Américains, présentement, est très difficile. Et dans ces circonstances, j'ai à cœur mon travail comme ministre des Affaires étrangères. Donc, je vais poursuivre ma réflexion.
Est-ce que vous devriez laisser votre poste de ministre pour faire campagne? Parce que là, ça créerait un trou à ce moment-là, à un moment critique.
Ça, ce sera au premier ministre et au parti à décider, mais ça fait partie aussi de ma réflexion.
Qu'est-ce qui vous permettra de trancher?
So that's the question I was just answering.
And I'm just trying to clarify.
Yes.
Would you? You would step away?
So for me, right now, the question I'm asking myself is, in the context of Canada-US, is where can I have the biggest impact? And so, of course, all of these different considerations that you're asking me are part of my reflection.
When are you going to make a decision?
What else is factoring into your consideration?
Well, everything. You know, when this is such an important decision, of course, you have to think about your family, your loved ones, my own projects to become a mother, and at the same time, to be able to defend Canada's interests. In the context of the Canada-US administration.
Parlez-nous de ce que vous mesurez.
So you know, this is something that not only I'm very concerned about, but we have to be extremely ready. Because the threat of tariffs is real.
Parlez-nous de ce que vous mesurez. Qu'est-ce que vous mesurez?
Vous voulez demeurer ministre tout en faisant la course, là, si je comprends bien.
Je n'ai pas répondu à cette question-là. Non, c'est pas ce que je dis.
Le fait que les libéraux tirent de l'arrière dans les sondages, on parle de 20-25 points de retard, est-ce que c'est un facteur pour vous? Est-ce que vous vous dites, je serais peut-être mieux d'attendre une prochaine fois?
Non, moi, je pense que présentement, les Canadiens, là, ils sont inquiets de ce qui se passe avec la relation avec les États-Unis. Ça crée beaucoup d'anxiété à travers le pays. Les commentaires du président élu sont complètement inacceptables. Et donc, dans les circonstances, ils cherchent du leadership. Puis, ils ne veulent pas un gouvernement laquais comme le gouvernement potentiel de Poilievre face aux Américains.
What do you think Donald Trump is doing with this talk about annexing Canada through economic means?
I think that when President-elect Trump talks, we need to listen, and we need to take him very seriously. I never take his threats lightly. At the same time, we can't take debate. And I think also that we're extremely strong as a country. Can I just finish? I think we're extremely strong as a country. I think our economy is strong. I think our people are strong. And I think we will never back down.
Croyez-vous que les règles de leadership devraient être changées? Beaucoup de gens commencent à parler d'un takeover des trop pro-palestiniens dans la course au leadership. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de toute cette réflexion, cette discussion?
Moi, je pense que dans notre démocratie, les partis politiques ont un rôle à jouer, d'établir des règles qui font en sorte qu'il n'y a pas d'ingérence étrangère, puis que, ultimement, aussi, les partis ont un rôle à jouer dans la suite des choses. Puis moi, je ne fais pas partie de l'exécutif du parti, mais j'ai compris que les gens qui sont Conseil national du Parti libéral du Canada vont prendre des
Mais
décisions.
doit être changé.
What do you think you would bring to the leadership
In
race?
the
the
Middle
last
East,
question.
a question on
Yes.
the Middle East. You know, Trump made new comments yesterday. If the deal's not reached in the Middle East, essentially all hell's going to break loose there. What do you make of his comments yesterday regarding the Middle East, and how are you working with your counterparts to ensure that a deal is met?
So I've worked a lot on the question of the Middle East over the past month. I've been in contact with Secretary of State Rubio. I've been in contact also with Secretary of State Blinken as well. I've been in contact with U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, who's been actively involved. I've been also in contact with my G7 counterparts, with Ron Dermer, an important Israeli cabinet member. Basically, I've been talking to a lot of people. And I know that right now there are discussions between the Americans, the Israelis, the Qataris, and also Hamas leaders, which of course we don't talk to. And I fundamentally hope that we can get peace in the Middle East. We need to continue to put pressure, maximum pressure, against Iran. Today is a very important day in Canada. It is the commemoration of the PS752 downing by Iran. And I've just talked to the families this morning. It is my promise to them, and it's been my promise now for years to them, that we will continue to hold this outrageous and nefarious regime accountable.
Mais juste les règles de leadership doivent-elles être changées? Je n'avez pas vraiment répondu. Est-ce que vous pensez qu'elles devraient être changées pour dire, par exemple, on ne doit qu'être citoyen ou résident permanent?
Bien, je pense que ce qu'on a appris à travers la commission d'enquête sur l'ingérence étrangère, c'est qu'il y avait un danger que les partis se retrouvent influencés par d'autres gouvernements. Puis je pense que le Parti libéral du Canada doit aborder cette question-là, puis doit trouver des solutions, parce que c'est pas vrai qu'on va fragiliser notre démocratie au sein du parti, mais notre démocratie de façon générale. Puis je pense que dans les circonstances, on ne peut pas se permettre d'erreurs racistes.
Qu'est-ce qui peut permettre
Raymond, tu m'as déjà posé une question. C'est ta dernière question.
You have to explain
Pour
what
revenir
do
au propos
you
de M. Trump, à quel point on doit le prendre au sérieux? Quand on entend le président élu, le prochain président dire qu'il veut annexer le Canada, c'est une menace grave, selon
Lorsque
vous?
le président Trump parle, on doit le prendre au sérieux. Ne pas le prendre au sérieux, c'est sincèrement démontrer une insouciance. Maintenant, il ne faut pas tomber dans son piège. Et donc, c'est pour ça que nous, on va continuer à se défendre, on va continuer à démontrer qu'on a une économie forte, que notre monde est fort, puis jamais on va tomber face aux menaces.
C'est quoi le point de vue de l'impérialisme?
Are you going to run in the next leadership race? Are you
Oui ou
gonna
non?
Well, I'm certainly running in the next election.
run next leadership race? Are you running?
Est-ce que vous y allez
So
en français?
les deux, bien sûr. I have had a number of colleagues that have approached me to encourage me to consider it. I certainly have been considering it. And I am continuing to have discussions with my colleagues. At the end of the day, I want to ensure that this is a race that is a robust race that discusses important issues. And I have not yet made a decision, but I'm certainly actively considering it. Maintenant, je considère, j'ai beaucoup de collègues qui m'ont discuté sur le leadership. Et maintenant, je considère, je n'ai pas fait une décision maintenant, mais bien sûr, je dois décider dans la prochaine semaine.
Qu'est-ce qui va influencer votre décision? Qu'est-ce qui va influencer votre décision?
Well, j'ai une conversation avec ma femme, bien sûr, mais c'est important. Hein? Mais je dois trouver, bien sûr, que j'ai le soutien un suffisant nombre de collègues pour avoir une chance de gagner.
Est-ce que vous l'avez?
Est-ce que vous l'avez?
Well, certainly it's a conversation with my family, and that's a conversation that's an important conversation. But I would also say that the conversations with my colleagues are very important. I want to ensure that I have a sufficient amount of support to be competitive in the race if I'm going to enter it. But I do think I have some important things to say.
Ben, c'est son choix. Dominic est un grand ami et un membre extrêmement important du gouvernement. Et comme M. Trudeau, il va se consacrer entièrement à la protection des intérêts du Canada au cours des prochaines semaines dans le contexte de l'arrivée de M. Trump au pouvoir à la Maison-Blanche.
Mais justement, parlant de l'arrivée de M. Trump, vous ne pensez pas que ça met le Canada dans une position de faiblesse, le fait qu'on ait une course au leadership pendant le Canada est plus menacé que jamais par un président américain?
Bien, nous avons un gouvernement pleinement fonctionnel avec M. Trudeau qui continue à être...
M. Trump s'écrit sur sa sortie.
En plus, de continuer. M. Trudeau a dit clairement qu'il allait maintenant consacrer toutes ses énergies à défendre l'intérêt du pays au cours des prochaines semaines, tout comme M. Leblanc va le faire aussi. Nous connaissons très bien M. Trump, donc on connaît le personnage, on a travaillé avec lui lors de son premier mandat. Nous nous préparons sa venue depuis déjà plus d'1 an. Nous sommes prêts. Au cours des derniers jours, vous savez, on est même allé sur place rencontrer ses futurs ministres.
En tant que Québécois, est-ce que vous avez une préférence dans cette course au leadership? Quelqu'un qui incarnerait bien peut-être les désirs du Québec?
Bien, il faut quelqu'un de bilingue, évidemment. Il faut quelqu'un qui comprenne très bien comment le Québec peut contribuer pleinement à la force du pays. Le Québec est une province qui joue un rôle majeur au Canada. Évidemment, on profite au Québec de l'appartenance au Canada, mais l'inverse est vrai aussi. Il faut que cette personne comprenne très bien en quoi la diversité et la spécificité du Québec est une très bonne chose pour le Québec.
Donc, bilingue, ça écarte Mme Clark.
Il faut que ce soit absolument quelqu'un qui s'exprime correctement et de manière fluide en français.
Avez-vous un nom? Avez-vous des noms pour nous? Quelqu'un que vous aimeriez?
Il y en aura plusieurs, vous allez le constater dans les prochains jours. J'en suis certain, d'excellents candidats qui vont être bilingues aussi.
Ouais, vous,
Sorry?
So do you think cabinet ministers should resign if they see the leadership?
We'll see what happens. I think it will become clear that there will be members of the cabinet and members that are not in the cabinet that will be present for the leadership race and will be able to speak on that matter.
Mais devraient-ils se retirer du cabinet, selon vous, les candidats?
Moi, je crois que ce n'est pas nécessairement une obligation qu'ils se retirent du cabinet, surtout si ce sont des candidats qui occupent présentement des postes importants au cabinet, qui vont devoir jouer un rôle important dans le contexte de la guérison de M. Trump.
Mais comment ils vont être capables de faire les deux?
How do you feel about Dominic LeBlanc not running?
Well, Dominic is a wonderful member of the cabinet, and he will be able to put all of his time and talent and resources to managing our relationships with the U.S. government in the next few weeks.
But is it a loss? Is it a loss? He meets those criteria that you were talking about.
Yes, he would have been an excellent candidate, but given that he will not be a candidate, he will be, as I said, putting all of his time and energy in defending the interests of Canada.
Mais juste revenir au cabinet, là, pour revenir à la question, comment un ministre pourrait-il être à la fois ministre des Affaires étrangères, par exemple, et faire une course au leadership?
Je pense que c'est possible. Je pense que c'est possible. On verra évidemment en fonction des candidats.
Une candidature de M. Champagne remplirait-elle
Ça a déjà été fait et étant donné que ces membres du cabinet, s'ils se présentent évidemment, ont déjà une expérience considérable et ont travaillé probablement dans certains cas de manière très intensive au cours des derniers mois pour se préparer à l'arrivée de M. Trump. Je ne vois pas de problème.
Mais pourquoi l'élection?
C'est pas 2 jobs à temps plein, ça? C'est pas 2 jobs à temps plein, faire une course à la chefferie et être ministre?
La job la plus...
Parce qu'être ministre, c'est pas une job à temps plein.
La job à temps plein, évidemment, ils vont la faire à temps plein.
Donc, quand est-ce qu'on fait campagne la nuit?
C'est une course qui va être courte, qui va être intense, mais courte. On verra quelles seront les candidats. Je peux vous dire honnêtement, et on verra on va dire honnêtement qu'il n'y a pas d'incompatibilité entre être ministre et candidat.
Dans quelle mesure cette décision-là, c'est parce que...
rules change for the leadership campaign? Should the rules change to address foreign interference concerns, including citizenship?
It's been the privilege and honor of my life to have been appointed to the Minister of Public Safety. My focus right now is to work with partners in Canada and the United States, working with cabinet colleagues, to try and manage this most important of relationships with the incoming U.S. administration. The party, the Liberal Party of Canada Executive, will obviously examine all of these questions. It will come to ground on what rules it will provide for leadership contenders, but my focus right now is on making sure that this most important of relationships
So what is your response?
is well managed.
Minister
LeBlanc, why did you decide not to run? Minister LeBlanc, right here, this is the pool camera, Minister LeBlanc.
On devrait exiger la citoyenneté canadienne, la résidence pour voter dans la course au leadership.
membre de l'exécutif.
Mais vous en pensez quoi, vous?
J'aimerais entendre ce qu'ils vont proposer aujourd'hui. Je pense qu'ils sont saisis de l'affaire, mais je suis totalement maintenant, mon focus, le travail que je fais vise la frontière canadienne. Et les
Oui, mais vous avez présidé le comité, vous avez vu l'ingérence étrangère. À la lumière de ce que vous savez, croyez-vous qu'il serait temps d'exiger la citoyenneté?
Je pense que l'exécutif du Parti libéral du Canada devrait examiner de très près les recommandations faites par NCCOP il y a quelques années.
Mr. Trump, he's now saying they'll use economic force to ensure that Canada and the U.S. merge. What's your reaction to that? And how should Canada respond?
My reaction is that our Canadian team remains disciplined. It remains focused. It remains dedicated to managing this relationship with members of the incoming administration. It means showing progress. I'm very pleased that in my first 2 weeks in the job, we've announced 5 major changes. As recently as yesterday, for example, we made sure that our opening hours in Canadian ports of entry are aligned with American ports of entry and vice versa. That's been a nuisance for some time. On December 23rd, we ended the notion of flagpoling, a huge irritation, 70,000 people boomeranging across our border and coming in and applying at a port of entry. I think what we need to do is continue to show progress. There will be a lot of noise. There will be a lot of drama. But the Government of Canada and our team is committed to building solid relationships with members of that incoming administration. And I look forward to sitting down with my counterpart, Mr. Holland, and I will sit down with him.
Do you think he's joking?
And I will in due course. Tomorrow I'm in Montreal at the port. Friday I'm at the border crossing between Quebec and New York. Sunday and Monday I'm in BC visiting with our teams out there on the port to see the progress that we're making. So my focus is not to speculate. My focus is not to theorize. My focus is to show progress.
Mais juste en français, do you think Trump is joking anymore? And how serious are you taking it?
Well, of course we take comments seriously, but we need to remain disciplined.
But is he joking?
I've never spoken to Mr. Trump. I don't know the man. I suspect he is running his own campaign domestically. All politics is local after all. But I think in due course, there are many, many millions of Canadians and Americans who know each other, who work together, who trust each other, and know that we are integrally linked.
En français, juste attendez, en français là-dessus, le fait que le Canada soit menacé plus que jamais par M. Trump, alors que le pays est plongé dans une course au leadership du Parti libéral, est-ce que vous ne pensez pas que ça nous met dans une position de faiblesse, le fait qu'il y ait une course au leadership dans votre parti?
Non, je pense qu'on est capable de marcher et marcher de la gomme en même temps. On est totalement saisi de la question des relations américaines maintenant, canado-américaines. C'est sur lequel je travaille, 12 heures par jour présentement. Je suis saisi complètement par les changements sur la frontière. Je suis en contact constant avec les États-Unis. Dimanche, il y avait une histoire qui circulait sur CNN qui nous a troublés. Le lien apparemment un lien entre le monsieur qui était à Nouvelle-Orléans et un lien canadien-égyptien qui était faux. Et on a passé la journée à clarifier les choses avec les médias aux États-Unis. Donc, on est saisi avec les choses pratiques présentement. Et on est bien capable, on est complètement capable. Le gouvernement du Canada fonctionne bien, le premier ministre fonctionne bien, l'équipe du cabinet Canada-US travaille bien et on fait des progrès.
Est-ce que vous pensez que M. Trump nous utilise politiquement?
M. Trump, c'est le président élu des États-Unis. Je ne peux pas deviner ce qui est dans sa tête. Je ne peux pas théoriser. Je sais ce que nous, on peut contrôler. Et on peut contrôler des mesures qui vont nous aider avec l'administration centrale.
Monsieur LeBlanc ne se présentera pas, ça fait extrêmement longtemps que vous le connaissez. Qu'avez-vous pensé de sa décision?
J'ai énormément de respect pour M. LeBlanc. Je lui souhaite évidemment...
Auriez-vous souhaité qu'il court?
La seule chose que j'aimerais dire sur la situation du leadership du parti, c'est ceci. I am a lifelong Liberal, and in 2015, I was one of 34 Liberals in the caucus. And I was more than... I'll come to it. Je vais répéter, pardon.
Non, mais vous pouvez recommencer.
C'est pas grave.
And in 2015, I was more than pleased to be able to be of assistance to help my leader, Justin Trudeau, take this party from third place to first place. And I think it's important for me to say the following. I think we need to thank Justin Trudeau for his service to this country. I think we need to thank his family. I think we need to thank his children. This is a very difficult role. He has played it well. He has served this country well. He has served his people well, and he's staying to help. So I'm very, very, very pleased to say today I am deeply appreciative of Mr. Trudeau's service to the country. We'll see how this leadership race evolves over time with rules, etc. But I think that's where I'm at.
How is Trump's team engaging with you on border security?
Would you consider running as leader?
Oh, geez, now you're really scaring me. You better call my wife and make sure when I have a chat with her, there's a cardiologist present.
How is Trump engaging with your team on border? How is Trump engaging with your team on border security? Because obviously the two ministers went to the States, presented this border plan. His team promised to take it to Trump, but then he made all those comments yesterday. So how is his team continuing to engage?
With inexorable momentum, we're moving forward.
Can you elaborate?
Sure. We have three streams. A political stream, where we're engaging. An official stream, where we're engaging. And an operational stream, where we're engaging. The head of the RCMP and a few other agencies will be in Washington, D.C. on Friday, for example, to continue dialogue, to show progress. So this is a systematic, disciplined, move-forward approach to showing improvement. That's how we're dealing with the administration, the incoming administration, because we need to be disciplined about this. It's easy to get thrown off. That's not a good idea. We need to keep showing progress and reminding Americans just how incredibly connected we are. We are more than connected economically. We are connected as neighbors. Our land masses are contiguous. Our Great Lakes are contiguous. Our species move between our countries. Our people move between our countries. So we have so much more in common than divides us.
And have you met with Holland?
Monsieur Trump hier, sa menace renouvelée de tarifs contre le Canada. Est-ce que c'est un signe comme quoi le plan que vous lui avez présenté pour la frontière n'est pas à la hauteur?
Je pense que c'est un signe que M. Trump a annoncé qu'il veut continuer avec son plan. On comprend, on sait bien.
Est-ce qu'il a rejeté votre plan? Est-ce qu'il vous l'a dit?
On sait bien. C'est une question de continuer maintenant avec l'équipe de M. Trump pour faire des progrès, démontrer qu'on prend des mesures pratiques, qu'eux aussi vont bénéficier de ces mesures. Et ça va être un projet qui va continuer plusieurs mois.
Est-ce qu'il aime votre plan? Est-ce qu'il aime votre plan?
Non, pas du tout.
Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont dit de votre plan? Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont dit?
M. Holland était sur la télévision canadienne. Il a dit que c'était très positif. C'était très encourageant. Il l'a répété, je pense, 6 fois. Et nous sommes de la même vue qu'il y a beaucoup de progrès à faire. Nous avons déjà, comme j'ai dit, dans mes 2 premières semaines, j'ai annoncé 5 mesures pratiques. J'espère annoncer 5 autres d'ici 2 semaines. Donc, on verra. Mais demain, je m'en vais à Montréal voir le port. Je vais être à l'école vendredi après-midi. Je suis à Vancouver dimanche et lundi pour rencontrer les gens sur la ligne frontière.
Have you met with any of your counterparts yet in the United States regarding border security?
Not yet. I want to go down there with hands full to show the progress that we're making. I've spoken to some folks. I've spoken to our border coalition people. I've spoken to Goldie Hyder, the head of one of our largest business associations. This is an all-hands-on-deck Team Canada approach.
Are you going to the inauguration?
Last question, please.
I don't think I've been invited.
The similarities between Canada and the U.S. Yesterday, Trump was saying the border is just an imaginary line. We may as well just get rid of that. How does Canada assert its sovereignty in this moment right now?
You don't need to assert your sovereignty when you're a sovereign state. As a former, well, look, I mean, there's lots of rhetoric and lots of talk, and there's lots of newscasting and lots of color commenting going on right now. Our government, the government of Canada, is focused on implementing measures that will help us. And I think that's where we're making progress, and we're going to continue, step by step by step. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Bonjour, ça va?
Sur le time frame de la course au leadership, c'est évidemment une question sur laquelle le Conseil national de direction doit trancher. Évidemment, je devine que vous aimeriez que le leader soit choisi avant le 24 mars.
Oui.
Donc, est-ce que début mars, par exemple, ou vous pensez même avant ça?
Peut-être. C'est un choix pour le parti généralement. Pour moi, si c'est possible de faire un choix pour...
Qu'est-ce qui va se passer, les discussions aujourd'hui? Ben, je pense qu'on va évidemment discuter de la course. C'est pas le caucus qui décide des modalités, évidemment. C'est le parti. Il y a plusieurs représentants du parti qui vont être là. Donc, sûrement avoir une présentation. Je ne sais pas quelle décision le parti a prise jusqu'à maintenant. Je sais qu'il y a eu plusieurs rencontres de l'exécutif depuis le début de la semaine. Il y en a plusieurs autres qui vont venir. Donc, je ne peux pas vous dire ce que je ne sais pas encore.
Le fait que M. Leblanc de ne pas se présenter, est-ce que vous êtes déçu? Comment vous voyez ça?
Ben, moi, je pense que Dominic LeBlanc aurait été un excellent candidat dans cette course-là. C'est un homme qui a beaucoup d'expérience, c'est un homme intelligent, c'est quelqu'un avec qui j'ai d'excellents rapports, qui est un allié pour moi comme ministre de l'Environnement dans de nombreuses discussions autour de la table du cabinet. Mais bon, après ça, je peux comprendre certainement.
Les règles de membership du parti doivent-elles être resserrées? Certains ont peur de l'ingération, de groupes de pression.
Ben, je pense qu'il faut avoir une réflexion là-dessus, notamment à la lumière de la Commission sur l'ingérence étrangère. Nous n'avons pas le rapport de la juge Hogg encore, nous l'aurons bientôt, mais je pense qu'il faut au moins se poser certaines questions.
Quelles règles qui seraient resserrées?
Écoutez, je pense que j'ai pas de proposition à faire. Je pense qu'on doit avoir la discussion et au moins se poser des questions.
Pensez-vous que les aspirants-chefs pourraient laisser tomber la taxe carbone, par exemple? Pensez-vous que la taxe carbone, il y a des aspirants-chefs qui pourraient laisser tomber ça?
Il faudrait poser la question aux aspirants-chefs.
Juste une dernière question par rapport à M. Trump. Le fait que le Canada soit menacé par M. Trump et qu'il y ait cette course au leadership en ce moment, est-ce que c'est un mauvais moment pour avoir cette course au leadership, le fait qu'on soit si menacé au même moment?
Écoutez, on pourrait dire toutes sortes de choses. Il y aurait dû, on aurait dû, mais là, on est là. Il y a une course à la chefferie qui va être annoncée sous peu, dont les règles sont connues sous peu. Et parallèlement à ça, il y a la menace de Trump. Le gouvernement est toujours là. Le cabinet fonctionne. Le comité sur les relations Canada-États-Unis s'est rencontré encore au début de la semaine. J'étais là comme membre du comité. On va faire tout ce qu'on peut pour bien se préparer, pour essayer d'éviter à tout prix possible l'imposition de ces tarifs-là. Et s'il y en a, il y aura une réponse de la part du Canada.
C'est bon, merci.
Dernière question.
Réformer la façon dont c'est appliqué.
Well, you know what I say to my American friends? There are 36 states in America that wake up every single day and say thank goodness for Canada. Why? Because we are the top customer. We're the top customer. And you know, we're a great customer. And here's the other thing I would also say. You know who likes doing business with us? Those very businesses in Republican states, whether it's Ohio, whether it is, Arkansas, whether it is, Missouri. So there is a win-win here for Canadian, for Americans, and these jobs are American jobs.
He's not joking at this point.
He is not. He is not, and we are taking it seriously, and we will respond seriously as well. But I have done a lot of work meeting Canadian businesses, American American legislators, and they understand the importance of this relationship. And as I say to the Americans, and the president knows this, he knows how important American jobs are. But 36 states, think about that, 36 states count Canada as their top customer. It isn't Japan, it is not China, it is not United States. We or United Kingdom, we sell more. We buy more from the Americans than those three countries combined. That's the importance of this relationship.
So you acknowledge that he's not joking anymore. You say you're taking this seriously, but how concerned are you? This is going beyond trolling now.
We are, of course, we have to be concerned when tariffs and punishing tariffs are going to hurt the Canadian economy. You've seen us stand up for Canadian businesses all the time. We've never, ever wavered from doing that. We will not do that this time. But I actually think that the work that Minister LeBlanc, Minister Joly, the Prime Minister has done around issues of border, which we also share, that's really good work. That's an example of how we'll work together, but we need to keep doing this because this trading relationship is far too important to Canada, but quite candidly, it's really important to American jobs. Remember, 36 states wake up every day because they count Canada as their top customer.
Trump wants to get a leadership
We're a big tent party. I think we have to have the rules in place to make sure that people that resident in Canada vote. We have a party constitution that's been thought about. My personal preference would be that Canadian citizens, but also permanent residents of Canada living in Canada, could vote for our leadership. And it's a way of engaging people in party processes, but I think the executive will make that decision, and I trust the executive to make the right decision.
Are you disappointed Mr. LeBlanc will be running?
Dominic is a huge asset to the party. He's a tremendous minister. I would be a very strong supporter of Dominic in anything he wanted to do, and I wish him well, and I wish he were in the race. Dominic would be an important person in our party, regardless of being leader or not, and I'm very fond of Dominic.
Just to clarify, do you intend to raise the issue about the leadership rules when you're in caucus today, and do you hope National Executive takes input from caucus when it comes to determining this?
Oh, absolutely. I think caucus are people who we live and eat and breathe the party, and I think that one of our roles is to provide advice. The board will make the decision. They're elected to make the decisions, but I think we want to talk to them about both the timelines and making sure that we have an expedited process, because we need a leader in place very early in March at the latest, so that leader can put his or her stamp on the throne speech, and making sure that we have a leader who is prepared to be the Prime Minister. And I also think we should talk about making sure there's no foreign interference and making sure we have the guidelines and practices in place to make sure that doesn't happen.
How much time do you think the party has to deal with all of these questions? Those are big questions. How much time do you think the party has to decide this?
I think they should decide by tomorrow night.
What I said is expedited process. So I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that would be before March 24th. Would March 1st, for instance, what do you have in mind?
I think a goal is that we should have a leader chosen. I think Sunday maybe is March 2nd, and I would like to have a leader in place by March 2nd. That is, and I think we can do it. This is 2024. We have processes in place where we can have very quick membership sign up and very quick way of having people appear with each other on social media and on virtual performance, that kind of way of doing things. So I think we can do it. I think it'll be fast. I think people know who the candidates are. We've got a good stable of 4 or 5 candidates, and I think any one of them could do well.
You just said you think that people know who the candidates are going to be. You have your own idea. Are you watching more closely some potential candidates?
Sure. I've been Parliamentary Secretary to 4 ministers: Chrystia Freeland, François-Philippe Champagne, Marc Garneau, and Mélanie Joly. All 4 of them would make an excellent Prime Minister. I've been very close to all 4 of them, and so I would. Marc Garneau ran once. And I donated to his leadership campaign the last time. So any one of those 4 would make an excellent Prime Minister. Which one did you pick? Which one am I? I'm just like my mother. My mother had 4 children, and she loved them all equally.
And are you going to vote equally for all 3?
I will see who decides to run among those. I do have a preference for someone that I have worked closely with because I know them, and I'm a loyal person, and that's where my mind is going right now. But you never know. You never know. That's what leaderships are all about. It'll be kind of fun. But I'm hoping one of my ministers throws her or his hat in the ring.
You don't want to say who today. You don't want to say who.
Oh no, I'm going to say I don't even know. Not all of them have declared. None of them has declared. So it will be kind of fun.
Is there danger for Canada trying to deal with the U.S. with this lingering leadership question, especially with Trump talking about annexation?
We have a really effective foreign minister. We have a really effective minister of trade. We have an effective prime minister. We have an effective, extremely effective ambassador in Washington. The reality is we have Mr. Trump with us now for 4 years. So let's not overreact today. We have to have a plan to make sure that Canada succeeds and Canadians succeed. We'll stand up to Mr. Trump. He has shown very clearly in recent days he doesn't understand Canada, so we have to make sure that we continue to tell him what Canada is and what Canada is not. Canada is not part of the United States, and it's never going to be part of the United States, and so we can say that very clearly, but let's just react very carefully over the next long term.
Would you run again now that there's going to be a new leader? Would you want to come back? You don't want to?
No, I've had enough.
You've had enough.
Who's the best person to take over from Mr. Trudeau?
I haven't decided who should be the best person.
Why have you had enough? Why have you had enough?
I've had enough because I'll be here 10 years, October coming, and that's long enough. I've been away from home. I've got grandkids who are in sports that I don't get to go see.
What do you want to see in the next leader?
Somebody who's honest with Canadians.
You don't think Mr. Trudeau was honest with Canadians?
I'm not saying he's dishonest to Canadians, but that's what I would like to have, is someone who is honest and upfront with Canadians.
Do you prefer someone from Cabinet or a newcomer?
What's that?
Do you prefer someone from Cabinet or a newcomer?
I think I'd prefer someone from Cabinet who has experience.
Are you should that person leave their cabinet post if they decide to run for the leadership?
I think they should, yes, but that's not my decision. I don't know what the rules are within the Constitution.
Should the Cabinet or the membership decide?
What do you think of the fact that he's not running? You know, a lot of people were mentioning his name. Like, what do you think of the fact that he's not running?
I think he decided to stay in a role that he enjoys and doesn't want to take on the extra pressure of being Prime Minister versus being a minister.
But from your point of view, is that a disappointment that he's not running?
I think it is, yes, because I think Dominic would have made a outstanding Prime Minister, and he performs in the House better probably than anyone else.
Should it be the caucus or the leadership that decides?
In the history of the country. Do you think that right now cabinet ministers are trying to take that into consideration when they're deciding whether or not to run?
I think they should, yes.
Should it be the caucus or the membership that decides who will be the next leader?
I think if it's an interim leader, caucus should be able to deal with it, because if not, you're going to have to go through a leadership within a leadership.
And what should it be? What should it be? Should it be an interim or a permanent?
Interim.
Okay.
Are you concerned about the quick timelines for this leadership race? There's not going to be a lot of time for
No, I think people have been getting ready for this for months.
What is
Do
your
you
party's
think the rules on who
response?
should be allowed to vote in the leadership election should be changed?
What's that?
Do you think the rules on who should be allowed to vote in the leadership election, that it should be made only people who are citizens of Canada?
I agree with it only being open to citizens of Canada voting. It's no different than a provincial election. You have to be a resident to vote.
On Trump, the fact that, you know, the threats against Canada are perhaps bigger than ever, and yet there's this leadership race right now. Do you think the timing is off? Like, do you think Canada is in a weak place as a result?
Well, when is a good time? There'll always be a crisis somewhere or something, and Donald Trump has added, I guess, a huge crisis to not just Canada, but to Panama, to Greenland, Denmark, you name it. It gives him airtime. And he's been paid attention to with the U.S. channels, but I wouldn't put much credence in anything Donald Trump says today.
How should Canada be responding to that threat?
I don't know. I think the Prime Minister gave a good response yesterday. Hell will freeze over before Donald Trump takes over Canada.
But should he address Canadians?
What's
Instead
that?
of just tweeting, should he talk to Canadians about that instead of just tweeting?
Well, I think it is out there for Canadians to know. It was on the news feed today on my TV in the morning. I didn't know about it until I seen it on the TV screen. But it was plain and simple, to the point.
But do you think the race happens too late? Like, right now, you know, a lot of people are saying we should be focusing on Trump, not a leadership race.
I think we can still focus on Trump. The main thing we had to focus on with Trump, I think, is the trade tariffs, and see how we can justify that and try and move the needle on it. But with regards to statements that Donald Trump makes about Canada or Greenland or anywhere else, that's up to him. If he's trying to get Fox News to pay attention to him, he's doing a great job.
Should Trudeau have resigned earlier? It was last January you first called for a leadership race, and he left it to the last minute.
Yeah, and that's, I always said it's up to the Prime Minister to decide if he wants to leave. I think the timing is not perfect because, like you say, we're right into a leadership race now and a bunch of people stepping up to say, I want to be Prime Minister and so on. So it's going to be a rough couple of months, I think, with people beating each other to death.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Have a lovely
Dominic is my first one on the list. I think he's been a great member, and I think he'd be a great Prime Minister.
What do you want to see in a leader, and who's second on your list?
I don't have a second. I was counting on Dominic. Interested in Mark Carney, but that'll depend on the rules and how they get set up. But it's an important decision, and we don't have a lot of time to make that decision.
What about Tom Ryan?
Why did you want Dominic?
He's bilingual, he's got a great personality, been around a long time. He understands politics very well, and I think he'd make a great Prime Minister.
This could be the shortest Prime Minister in history. What is your pitch to cabinet ministers or others that you want to see take on this job right now at a time when you're so low in the polls?
You know, we need somebody that really reflects Liberal values, and it's critically important that we choose somebody that's middle of the road, understands the needs of Canadians, and will put Canadians first.
What should be done about the Donald Trump situation?
What do you think of this leadership race happening while, you know, Canada is under threat by Donald Trump? Do you think it's a bad timing?
Oh, the timing's off for sure, but it is what it is, and we will do what we have to do to ensure that Canada stays strong and viable.
What do you make of Donald Trump's talk of merging our two countries?
Oh, the guy's full of hot air. I mean, we all know that, and I think he should concentrate on his issues in his own country, because he's got lots of them.
Thank you very much.
Reaction that Ford will not be running as leader.
It makes my decision a little bit easier, actually. This is the first I heard about it.
What do you mean it makes your decision easier?
Because I had a very long-term relationship with Dom. I love the guy. He's very dynamic, very powerful speaker. I think there's probably a lot of people that will be disappointed that he's decided not to run. I have indicated that I haven't decided what I'm going to be doing yet. I still reflecting in terms of Justin Trudeau and that.
Is it easier or harder to get re-elected, Kevin? Does it get easier to get re-elected now that Trudeau's not in the...
For me, it doesn't change. You know, I took out my signs before the snow fell when Singh tore up the agreement. I took them seriously. I went and got my signs out, so I'm ready to go. At the end of the day, I think that we reading too much into the leadership. The Liberal Party has now, because of a decision by Justin Trudeau to step aside, which I disagreed with, but because of that, the Liberal Party has an opportunity to be able to show Canadians that we can get the change that they desire if we do it right. That means we have to listen and we have to be open to ideas. We've done a lot of wonderful things, some things maybe not so wonderful. And we have to be open to listen to what candidates have to say. And if we do this right and we engage Canadians, I think that we can have the type of change that Canadians want to see and not be scared by Pierre Poilievre.
You're saying it makes your decision easier. Does that mean you're leaning towards not running because LeBlanc's not going to go as leader? You said it would make your decision easier.
Oh, because he was one of the individuals I was seriously looking at.
So you might go then because of not him.
No. I'm running in the next election. I've committed. I've got my signs. We're ready. I've already have my first draft of my brochures. I'm ready to go. I've been doing this since 1988. I take elections never stop. They're ongoing. At the end of the day, what I'm suggesting is that because of the decision that the Prime Minister has made, even though I disagree with his decision, I believe the Liberal Party is at an opportunity here in which we can demonstrate to Canadians we understand the desire and the need for change. If we don't screw this thing up, if we do appeal to Canadians in a very real and tangible, genuine way, be open to ideas, acknowledge the things that we've done well in, but also reflect on the ideas that maybe would make a difference, that would demonstrate clearly that we are changing. They can have change through a new leader and a new Liberal Party as opposed to taking the high risk of going to Pierre Poilievre.
Should the rules be tightened to avoid the foreign interference?
Pardon me?
Should the rules be tightened for the leadership race to avoid foreign
Yeah, I think the foreign interference has had more of an impact on Conservatives, including the leadership of the Conservative Party. At the end of the day, our leadership team that's been around the table that have to ensure that there's integrity within our leadership race I have confidence in that, and we can learn from Pierre Poilievre and the disaster they had, because there is all serious allegations of foreign interference into their leadership. We don't want that to happen.
Just to finish on that, in your race,
Yeah.
do you think that the rules need to be changed around who can vote, and should it be citizens or
People that should be entitled to vote, from my past experience, permanent residents and Canadian citizens. Those are the individuals that should be allowed to vote. As long as you're 14 years and older, we have an opportunity, and if we get this thing right, we can demonstrate very clearly to Canadians that we are an alternative for change. We can be the change that Canadians want if we do this thing right.
You think Justin Trudeau could have won this election? You think Justin Trudeau could have won this election?
I had no problem with Justin Trudeau continuing on. We've got to put into perspective in terms of the amount of money that the Conservatives and other stakeholders have invested in discrediting Justin Trudeau over the years. It's disgraceful in terms of the millions of dollars that have been mounted against him through, in particular, social media. I believe that the timing for him in terms of stepping down, and I disagree with what likely is a majority of people, I believe the timing is right. We have enough time to have a solid leadership campaign. We will get candidates going into the race. I think at the end of the day, Canadians will be satisfied.
In terms of what you're talking about with your party needing to sort of show that you can change,
yes.
What would that look like to you? What do you think the party needs to respond to in the public?
So for example, there are some things that I believe are sacred. One of those things is health care. I believe we've done some wonderful things in health care. Some things maybe not as much. You know, there's a lot of resistance to the carbon tax. I think that at the very least we need to, check with Canadians on that particular issue. And if there's a leadership candidate that's thinking about it, I'm not necessarily going to discourage it. I think that we have to put everything on the table. If we fail at demonstrating to Canadians that we cannot be that venue for change, we will not be in government come summertime. I believe the election's coming up in May for an election date. I'm hoping that whomever our new leader is will come forward with a throne speech that will excite Canadians, that will demonstrate that we are the change that they want to be, that they need.
Can I ask you, just before you go, there's been this Liberal Party of alternating between
That's disappointing. This is the first time hearing of it. Dominic's an excellent leader in our party, and hopefully continues in a strong leadership going forward.
What are the skills you're looking into a new leader?
We need someone to address the most important and fundamental issues. I need someone that will be able to look Mr. Trump in the eye and negotiate on behalf of Canada, because I think ultimately and fundamentally that's going to be the number one issue Canadians are concerned about when we go to the polls sometime in the future.
This is the number one skill.
That will be the number one skill I'm looking for.
Look, obviously we're going to have members of the National Board. I believe our President will be in the today to have this discussion. I think given the foreign interference dynamic that we've seen in the country, and I think the Commission is expected in late January, I do think that there will have to be more scrutiny on who is eligible to vote in this. I think understandably right now the Constitution says someone who ordinarily resides in Canada. I think at the very least it has to be citizens of the country, could live with a permanent residency. Again, the question is going to be the verification thereof, but I think it's extremely important because we're not just electing a leader of the National Party, we're electing what would be the Prime Minister. So I think it's important that we have scrutiny.
And does the party executive have the power to make those changes?
I'm confident we're going to be the process here would be different. We also have the ability to put in place.
What do you want to see in a new leader?
I think obviously it's an important vision for the country. We're at a very delicate time right now, especially with what we're seeing from President Trump south of the border. I think there's going to be a focus on economic growth. There's going to be a focus on how we position the country moving forward. And we have a great opportunity to do that through this process.
What do you think of Dominic LeBlanc getting?
That still has to be said. Français là, qui a toujours à être établi pour cette course. Qu'est-ce qui serait réaliste selon vous et approprié dans le cas présent? Est-ce que fin février, avec un nouveau leader, ce serait...
Je crois que le plus important point, c'est de s'assurer que nous avons un nouveau chef en place avant, bien sûr, le discours au trône en mars. Donc, c'est une décision un peu avec l'exécutif chef de la Parti libéral du Canada, mais à mon avis, c'est absolument nécessaire d'avoir un processus très court, raisonnable, mais très court pour s'assurer que nous
Ça veut
avons...
dire quoi très court? Est-ce que début mars, par exemple?
Oui, 1er mars, je pense, mais encore, c'est possible de déterminer une certaine date, mais aussi c'est nécessaire d'avoir les conversations en principe avec la méthode pragmatique pour s'assurer qu'il y a une opportunité pour les membres de la Parti libéral à partir de Québec.
And I understand you're not in favor of the caucus choosing for a leader. Would it be interim?
Je pense que nous avons beaucoup de partisans, les personnes à partout du pays, et c'est plus important d'engager les Canadiens à partout du pays de déterminer notre prochain chef.
Do you think the new leader should get rid of the consumer carbon price?
Look, I'm someone that fought very hard to actually get that price adjusted. I'm open to those different ideas. I think that there are certain constituents in my riding that would like to see that happen. There's others that actually really value the program, the fact that it has a rebate. My focus as a member of Parliament will be there's different ways to be able to go about fighting climate change, and if a leader wants to be able to change that, I would fully support it. I do need to get to caucus, though. I do need to get... Great guy. I think Dominic, I did see this morning that he's not putting himself forward. I think he's focused on the Canada-US dynamic, which is extremely important. He would have been a great leadership candidate, but at the same time, he's a tremendous asset to the country, and I'm glad that he'll be focused on what I think is the most important thing right now in relation.
In the race?
Look, obviously I'm a proud Atlantic Canadian. No, we've got tremendous people, and if someone from Atlantic Canada puts their name forward, great. If they don't, I'm confident the other people who have been suggested that we would have a great process. I do need
to answer this question, whether or not, you were the first one of the mic and whatever caucus meetings we had, times like Trudeau's leadership. There's going to be a new leader. We don't know who it is, but does it get it easier now for you to win in West Vancouver?
Well, I think you've already seen the change in the polls. There's a 5-point change just like that. I like the party. Already hearing from a lot of very eminent leaders that are considering stepping forward, so looking forward to competitive open race. But we don't have a lot of time to do it, so that's why today is so important, so that we fix a lot of the parameters of what that's going to look like, deal with some of the vulnerabilities that are there. But it's a very exciting time right now, and so I've really heard that from folks in my riding.
Do your folks in your riding have a preference for a particular person, or at least a kind of person? There is someone called Christy Clark who might want to run, and a guy right beside you, John Wilkinson, who wants to run.
Yeah, like I said, there's lots of really exciting candidates that are putting their name forward. So I don't think there's any particular preference that people have at this point so far, but that's why we want to make sure that we keep this as an open process.
Just on the timing of this, Canada is under threat by Trump like never before, and yet there's a race. Do you think the timing is off? Do you think Trudeau waited too long? Do you think this is Canada's in a weak position because of this leadership race?
I think it's important that we do get this started as soon as possible for the reasons that you mentioned. I think this very much should have started earlier. You can point to a lot of decision points over the last 6 months that would have made this process a lot easier, but that's why it's important that we get this started and choose the next leader as soon.
Should the rules be changed in terms of being a citizen, a Canadian citizen, to have a right to vote, for instance?
I believe you should be a citizen or a permanent resident.
Okay.
So we don't want to have the same things hanging over the head of the party that are hanging over the head of the Conservative Party with the allegations of foreign interference regarded. And so I think knowing what we know now, I'm not sure exactly what's going to be in the Hope report coming out, but those are some of the vulnerabilities that we can address right now to ensure and give confidence to Canadians that the next leader is going to be chosen without that kind of fetting from foreign interest.
And should there be a price? There's no membership price for now. Should there be one now?
Well, I think that's a harder thing to change, but that's one of the things that I think should be talked about.
Okay, so you would like to see that, maybe?
I think it's one of the things that needs to be talked about.
I'm going to have conversations with all of the candidates that express an interest in seeking the leadership of the party. After those discussions and after getting input from the Liberal members in Winnipeg South Centre, as well as constituents that I represent, who are my most important stakeholders. I will collect all of that feedback, analyze the discussions that I've had, and then make a determination as to whether or not there's someone who I want to throw my support behind.
Has anyone called you so far?
Oh, sure, I've had conversations with a number of people. Well, I'll keep those private.
Do you think cabinet ministers from, particularly those on the U.S.-Canada committee, should have to step back from their role in cabinet if they're going to run for the leadership?
I think that's an important discussion for us to have today. I also think it's dependent upon how many ministers may potentially decide to put their name forward. If we're talking about a couple, then I think that it's manageable in terms of the impact that that might have on the function of government. If we're talking about 10, then obviously we have to have a different conversation.
What are you looking for?
Rules that, as it stands, non-citizen and non-party residents can vote in the Liberal leadership. Do you think those rules need to be?
I think we have to have an important conversation today about that. We need to weigh the pros and cons, and most importantly, we have to ensure that we have a fair, equitable, and free of interference process. That's going to be really critical, is to ensure that we do everything to protect the interests of Canadians in the process that we're about to undertake.
Est-ce que le prochain chef doit avoir un siège aux communes déjà?
Pas nécessairement.
What do you think? What are you looking for?
L'ordre de grandeur du temps, le time frame, comme on dit en anglais.
Oui.
Est-ce que qu'est-ce qui serait un ordre de grandeur approprié en termes de jours? 30 jours, 40 jours, 45 jours? Je sais que c'est des discussions que vous devez avoir, mais avez-vous un ordre de grandeur en tête dans...
Avant le 24 mars.
Mais préférez-vous une date plus hâtive que le 24 mars?
Je sais pas. Je vais entendre aujourd'hui les différents points de vue de mes collègues, mais probablement une date dans la première semaine de mars, deuxième semaine de mars, mais ça doit être avant le 24 mars.
Minister's delay making a decision has kind of handicapped the party's leadership process?
I'm not going to, Monday morning quarterback on the decision that the Prime Minister made in regards to timing. The decision has been made, and we obviously now have a very important process ahead of us that we have to make sure we throw our full energy and dedication into.
What is your position? I understand there's going to be a discussion in there, but do you think non-citizens should be choosing who the next Liberal leader and Prime Minister is?
Well, like I said, we have to have a conversation today in caucus in order to... Well, I don't rush to conclusions. I come to decision-making after thorough and thoughtful reflection. I don't think that I've personally had an opportunity to hear the various points of view yet from my colleagues from the national executive of the party, and until I've had an opportunity to hear those different points of view, inclusive of those that I represent, I'm not going to come to a conclusion. There are obviously varied considerations that we have to take into account as we're wrestling with that question, but I'm not one to draw conclusions until I've had an opportunity
Certains dans la communauté juive notamment ont peur d'un takeover par des partisans du Hamas, par exemple. Voudriez-vous voir un resserrement des règles de membership pour éviter ça?
Il y a une responsabilité d'assurer qu'il y a un processus juste, un processus sûr, et je suis confiant qu'on va déterminer des règles qui vont assurer qu'il y a une protection pour le Parti libéral du Canada et une protection pour le pays.
Donc, sur Dominic LeBlanc, le fait qu'il ne se présente pas.
Ben oui, j'ai beaucoup de respect pour Dominic.
Est-ce que vous êtes déçu de sa décision?
Ben non. J'essaie de trouver le mot en français. S'il a décidé de se présenter, pour moi, c'était pas une mauvaise chose. Il est extrêmement fort. Mais le fait qu'il reste et a l'habilité de continuer le travail important pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes, je pense que c'est une bonne chose.
Donc vous n'êtes pas déçu?
Yeah, so in terms of Dominic's decision not to run, I certainly would not have discouraged him from running. I think he would have been a formidable candidate. However, I think that given the responsibilities that he has to ensure that the business of government continues and that we're doing everything that we can to protect the interests of Canadians in light of the challenges that we face with the incoming American administration, it's not a bad thing that he's going to remain responsible for his cabinet. legitimate positions.
English, somebody's concerned about the one-member, one-vote situation, allowing special interest groups to have an undue influence on the Liberal leadership over polarizing issues like the Israel-Hamas war, environmentalism, other issues that are already well organized.
Well, the Liberal Party of Canada has always been a microcosm of society, has always been a big inclusive tent, a home for people with varied political views. So it doesn't concern me that it's a one-member, one-vote, but we do have to ensure within the parameters of the leadership race that we are not vulnerable or susceptible to types of outside influence that really ought not to be present in the context of the race.
Last year, I guess, about, especially when the Israel-Hamas war was feeling very polarizing, that campaigns were going to be very easily waged during this leadership race, that we're going to be able to influence the results because of the rules that exist. And how do you prevent that from dictating who's your new leader, rather than finding the best person to represent all Canadians in a united fashion?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think the purpose of, in large part, the purpose of today's meeting is to have really robust conversations about how we ensure that the party and the country ultimately is protected from any type of outside influence. So those conversations will take place, but I'm very confident that the national executive of the party knows how to move forward in the right way and in a way that will protect the interests of Canadians. Thank you.
And one about the beginning of March, or in your experience, what could be appropriate time frame in that case? Beginning of March or end of February for the new leader to be chosen?
In around that time, end of February, beginning of March, I think a new leader has to be in place before Parliament resumes at the end of March, and that new leader has to have time to be prepared and enter the House ready to go.
My understanding is that there were some people in the caucus wanting for a leader to be chosen by the caucus. Would that be acceptable for the party?
Look, there's been every theory you can imagine has been bandied about by different people. As I said to your colleague earlier, I've been around the Liberal Party for my entire life, and it's the members who decide these issues, and this should be no different. There should be a nationwide discussion with members of the party in every province, in every city, and they will get their voice, and they will be heard, and they will pick the new leader.
Did the Prime Minister leave his resignation too late? We're kind of at the end of the wire here.
That was the Prime Minister's decision to make. On when?
Should he have done it sooner?
Est-ce que vous aimeriez que ce soit une date plus hâtive, évidemment, que le 24 mars?
Oui, je pense que c'est important, mais on veut voir, le parti veut se prononcer sur ça.
Mais est-ce que vous voudriez, par exemple, 1er mars, avez-vous une approximation en tête?
Une date en tête et c'est le parti qui veut décider très bientôt.
Est-ce que les règles pour le parti, les règles devraient être revues selon vous?
Je veux laisser l'espace pour le parti à décider, mais tous ces points sont sur la table et il y a une évaluation actuellement sur ça.
Is there any candidate you're looking at you'd like to see run or you could see yourself supporting?
Well, I think Mr. Poilievre is really sad right now because this is no longer a referendum on our PM, who we have a great affection for. So I think that, Mr. Poilievre is really, he's lost his moment, and we are going to have excellent candidates through our process that will lead to us again presenting something very strong to Canadians. Thank you.